Hello, welcome to Anupali. Thank you for joining me again this Sunday for another edition of this one-on-one program designed to keep you informed about the work of your government. Anupali is my way of keeping in touch with you, the Dominican people, so that you always feel part of the development process and have your say in decision making that benefits us all. But before I go on, I wish to extend Happy Earth Strong Day to my friend and brother, Clifton Batley, also known as River Nickel. See you when you return soon. Jah guide, my brother. This past week, we announced specific dates for reopening of the country's borders. First, the 15th of July for returning nationals and August 7th for visitors. We continue to fine-tune the guidelines and regulations to ensure the safety of all citizens, and I look forward to your cooperation as we take the necessary actions to keep ourselves, our families, and our communities safe. We could not have kept the country closed to travel indefinitely, as there are economic implications that we must consider as a government and as a country. Yet, the health and safety of the Dominican people remain our top priority, and so we will continue to engage you regularly as we move forward on this. The hope is that together we can make the right decisions in the best interest of all our citizens. This evening, I wish to spend some time talking about the public service. I want to discuss issues related to productivity and service delivery, and importantly, for so many public officers, the concern of public officers' appointments in the public service and upward mobility. As citizens, we have an expectation of easily accessible and quality public services. I believe it is an essential function of government to ensure that this is achieved and that we are more responsive to the public. How can we do this, one may ask? Reform is necessary, but we also need to do more to empower and motivate public officers to perform at the optimum. Public officers need to appreciate also that their function is to serve the general public. My government's priorities in this regard include the reclassification exercise for members of the public service to ensure they get a better deal, and the creation of new opportunities for training, growth, prosperity, and upward mobility. To achieve these objectives, we are embarking on a comprehensive public sector reform and modernization program that will focus on reforms of our structures and management of personnel, overhauling our procedures, increasing our efficiency through expanded use of technology, and improving our delivery of services to the public. I wish to advise those of you who applied for government's generous gift of 40% reduction in your student loan that the cabinet has finally approved the names of those who qualified, as we've been advised by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, and of course, you can get more information from the Permanent Secretary. I will be joined for the next 2 hours by Mr. Thomas Later, General Secretary of the Dominican Public Service Union, His Excellency Steve Farrell, Secretary to the Cabinet, and Ms. Karen Privo, Chief Personnel Officer, and my friend and colleague, Honorable Greta Roberts, Minister for Governance, Public Service Reform, Citizen Empowerment, Social Justice, and Ecclesiastical Affairs. So many things there. With me now in this is the General Secretary of the Dominican Public Service Union, Mr. Thomas Later. Mr. Later, I am pleased that you have accepted my invitation to be here this evening so that we can discuss matters relevant to the country's public officers and begin to chat a way forward. Welcome to Anupali.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister.
But I must tell the people that I've known you for a long time. You were a health inspector. You know, so I knew you back, Mr. Lipson LeBlanc, you come to Vacas and so on. So we've been friends for a long time. People think that we're not friends. But we're happy to have you here. And thanks for accepting my invitation. Now, Mr. Later, over the past months, we have been reminded of the key role that public officers play in the running of the affairs of a country. Our nurses, doctors, fire officers, police officers, the domestic workers, and many others performed an extremely high level, at a very extremely high level, to contain the spread of COVID-19. How do you view this contribution that our frontline workers have made to the effort?
I view the contribution of those frontline workers has been exceptional. They sacrifice their time, families, and the comfort of their homes and place their lives at risk, providing very good service to us, to the citizens of this country. And I must say that I was always happy when I listened to the Honorable Minister of for Health, thanking them and reminding the population of the hard work that those frontline workers were involved in, sometimes doing the work of more than one public officer. So I must say that we are where we are today because they have played a very great contribution to that, and I think all Dominicans should be proud of those frontline workers.
We agree entirely, and of course we want to reiterate our profound gratitude to all of you who have played your part thus far. The battle is not over. We have to continue to be vigilant, and we look forward to the continued cooperation of all of us and the commitment of the public officers. But as we speak, what would you say are some of the most pressing concerns of the public officers whom you represent?
Honorable Prime Minister, the union has been a voice for a long time, talking about the long periods of people acting in positions and not being appointed, temporary appointments we have in the public service. People have been in positions, temporary positions, for a decade, and they are not appointed. And we have a number of teachers, we have some nurses, a number of junior clerks. Delayed in promotion is another great concern for us. People have been in the service for a long time, and they are not being promoted, although they have the qualification, and as I said, acting. Another concern for public officers is their EADRs not being done on time, evaluation. Why should we have instances where 3, 4, 5 years and people's performance appraisals are not being done? So that is...
I have heard in some cases it is as many as 10, 12, 13 years.
Well, PM, I remember in one instance, there were some people from a certain department of government, certain government department, and when it was done, people went home with $70,000. I mean, that should have never happened. There should be some system in place to make sure that these EADRs are done on time. So that is something that one has to look at. And I believe the people sometimes do not feel comfortable approaching their supervisors and so on and talking to them about issues that are affecting them. And I personally believe that one of the things when I meet the new CPO, I have not met her yet officially, that we may look at is what study can be done to really find out what are some of the concerns of public officers, not just me saying what I'm hearing, but I think we need to organize something where people are able to say, look, I have been in the service and these are my concerns and so on. And then together with the administration, together with the authorities, we can decide as to how these things can be addressed.
Well, as you know, I started the process of, in an extraordinary fashion of meeting public officers at different levels to hear from them directly, because sometimes concerns don't get to me, because they are the administrator of the public service and there's the political directorate. But I agree with you, that is something we need to look at in a more structured way. But in terms of some of the concerns that you issues confronting public officers which you have raised, how do you propose that we can, in addition to the last point you made, what other actions do you believe we can take together to addressing those concerns?
First of all, I believe dialogue is extremely important. There must be constant dialogue between the union and the authorities. And sometimes we think, but we are not happy that the dialogue isn't there. I mean, if anybody from the government would call me and say, Mr. Later, I want to meet with you to discuss a particular matter, whether it's a permanent secretary or the head of a department, I would make myself available. But sometimes, Honorable Prime Minister, we would write and do not even get an acknowledgement of our letters. And I think that is bad. And sometimes also I find that when you do get a response, after you would have raised the matter, you would not be happy with the response. For example, why would a permanent secretary write to the General Secretary of a public sector union representing public officers a letter where he has raised concerns, and all you say to him, I acknowledge receipt of your letter dated so and so, full stop? That to me is not good. I mean, I would expect more than that. You write, you acknowledge receipt of the letter, and even if you do not have the answers yet, say something about it. Say that the matters are being addressed, we'll get back to you. But I find it's not nice. It's not good at all. It's not professional.
But don't you think, I mean, in terms of public statements, even from the union, I mean, should not there be an appearance of balance in terms of the comments? Because most times we hear from the union is something negative. So for example, I mean, after Hurricane Maria, we kept all public officers temporary and otherwise. We paid everybody's salaries. In regards to COVID-19, we may be one of the few countries in the Caribbean who have not paid salaries late or who have not asked public officers for a reduction in pay. And people are finding it strange, you know, asking what is Skerrit doing in Dominica, why he has not asked public officers to reduce their salaries. But sometimes I think in the public domain, we may need to improve on our relationship and let people know that there is a partnership, there is a working relationship. It is not always smooth sailing, but it is not always rocky either.
Well, PM, I would respond to this statement that you have made by saying this. If we can only speak of positive things when we have information, and I'll give you an example. For example...
But the point I made is public information.
Yeah, well, I'm going to answer that, PM. What I'm saying is, if, for example, I mean, how could I, as General Secretary, say, look, the government is not going to send anybody home? When public officers are coming to me, those who are temporary, and they'll say to me, Mr. Later, I have been asked to take some leave, but I am not sure what is going to happen to me. But at least, if we had some information saying, look, this is what government has decided to do, then we would be in a position to give the praise where the praise has to go and to even make statement in support of it. But in the absence of official information, we can only speak to what we are hearing from some of our members. Because, for example, PM, I mean, I was invited to the consultation that you had at the parish hall. And after that, absolutely no information was communicated to the union in terms of government's policy. Now, we are representing public officers, and there are times when you need us to help you to convince and to sell certain things to public officers. But in the absence of official communication from you, we are not in a position. So I agree with you. I agree there should be dialogue. We have to work as partners, but the information sharing is very important. And PM, even sometimes when I request information, I don't get it.
So what I hear from you is that there needs to be improvement in communication both ways.
Oh, definitely.
Both ways. All right. So we've taken note of that. But we talk often about salaries. Every time you hear is about salaries and salary issues. But there are other considerations in the workplace that can be addressed to improve the position of public officers. What are two or some of these things you believe can be done?
Well, I don't think we are negotiating now, but let me say this. I mean, we have always, and government has always considered certain things that would recommend in addition to salaries. And I must say that there has been positive things coming out of those discussions when we get to the negotiating table. So it is not something new. But we have certain things that we believe that could be considered in favor of public officers. For example, you may have, public officers might not be in a position to approach the financial institutions and to get emergency loans and so on. I believe that is something that the government can seriously look at, establishing a fund where public officers, if they have an emergency, they could access some of these loans. Things like gratuity is something, the maximum period at which public officers get gratuity is something that we need to look at. Because if we are saying that you get benefit from Social Security at 65 years, then I believe we have to look at the age people retire from the public service. Shouldn't we begin to think of 65 instead of 60? And since the maximum number of years that you can get gratuity is 33 and 1/3.
But it's a process, though.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But these are things we have to.
It's increasing every by 6 months, every so often, because I mean, eventually you will get to 65. Eventually.
No. I'm not talking about the age at which you receive pension.
No, I don't.
But I'm talking about the retirement age. Because remember, the government still have to meet that gap.
That. Yeah, we meet
and
the
other thing, PM, is while
public officer is not losing.
Some are losing because that doesn't apply to non-established officers. That is something we have to seriously look at.
Okay, so non-established officers you're talking about. But
non-established public officers, in other words, you are non-established, you go home at 60 and you have to wait until 65. So that is something that we have to definitely look at.
Well, okay. Now, so this is in regards to the gratuity.
And the other thing, without tripping your Honorable Prime Minister, we need to look at fast tracking the enactment of the public service regulations. I understand.
Yeah, but
this has been there for about 30 years. It is really time.
That's in process. I believe that before the end of 2020, the new regulations will be put in place, and a number of very important aspects of concerns to public officers, which I believe these regulations will address. So this certainly will address some of the concerns that you're raising there. Now, you raised some concern about the lack of communication from the government, or timely communication, that is. But how do you suggest that the government and the union collaboratively work more closely together in the interest of public officers?
First of all, I think we need to regularize how often we meet to discuss
because we
issues.
really mostly meet during negotiations.
Yeah. I believe we should regularize that we meet at least, that is the union and the senior administrator of the public service, at least every quarter. Every quarter. So you meet with your committee of permanent secretaries, as well as maybe the Prime Minister, and we discuss issues. We will get first-hand information, and at the same time, you will get an opportunity to understand or get to know what are some of our concerns. Because what is happening now is that because there is not that level of dialogue, we do not have information that we can share. And sometimes when we react to that situation in a certain way, it may not always go down well. So we know that. But I believe if we can regularize this thing, and we meet at least once every quarter, that itself can be, I believe that would be a good thing. Because we have to begin to talk about social partnership. At the end of the day, we have the same objective, the interest of the country. It's like I'm going to Martinique to a wedding and you are going. You decide to go on an airplane, I decide to take a boat. At the end of the day, our destination is Martinique, and we are going for the same event. So I believe with that, we need to work closer and better.
Yeah. Now, we often hear complaints about productivity or the lack thereof within the public service. And it is safe to say that there are some public officers who do not perform up to par. They are performing below the standards. From the perspective of the union, how can productivity in the public service be improved? I mean, we've been hearing this for many decades. How do you recommend, what from your perspective, what can be done to improve productivity in the public service?
First of all, I believe training is extremely important, and we need to have a well-developed induction or orientation program with inputs from both the union and the government, and that should be considered for new entrants. I have seen training being done for new entrants in the past, but when you look at those new entrants, they have been in the system for about 7 years. So if they have any bad habits, I mean 7 years, just take a junior clerk, for example.
But do you think the system is archaic? I mean, the whole process is archaic.
Exactly.
I mean,
That is why I'm saying that the regulations, we need to really fast track this thing, because general orders is something that was handed down to us during colonial days, and I don't think the times that we are living in right now that general orders is applicable to us. But I am happy to hear from you this evening that very soon that will be done, because it's about 30 years it's in the pipeline.
Yeah, but I those regulations will be passed, but at the end of the day, they're regulations. I mean, we have laws against litter, but we see people littering. The question is, how do we change the mindset? Because productivity is a mindset, it's not about law. If productivity could be improved by law, I mean, we'll be okay. But how do we go about improving the mindset and people understanding that the more productive I am, the better my job secured, and the less taxation that will be required to ensure that we can meet certain goods and services.
Well, as I said, training is very important, and we have to sit and to decide on a package. That is important to me. The question of succession planning is, again, very important. I get the sense that there is not enough succession planning in the service. If people know that they will be given an opportunity, certain things will happen, they will perform, because they know they have to perform to get to a certain levels. So that, I believe, is important. Empowerment is very important, Honorable Prime Minister, because sometimes I believe people do not use the authority that is given to them, and maybe they do not even understand what they have. I'm not talking about just punishment. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying, for example, if you're the head of a department and you realize somebody is not meeting up to what is expected of him, what is being done? People do not write. People do not pull people and talk to them. And I believe we again need to see how we can put things together. If somebody is not performing, what system are we going to put in place? Not to penalize the person, but at least to talk to the person. And maybe something need to be done. I know the public service day.
But let me ask you a question. If somebody is working on your farm, you have a farm, right?
Yeah.
Somebody is working on your farm and you're not producing, what do you do to the person?
I talk to them.
You give them a pig to go home with?
No.
Oh,
I talk to the person. PM, I know.
I mean, how long would you talk to the person?
I know there are people, and I remember one time as an environmental officer.
But just we can take some calls. We have the numbers up, right? Okay, so we can take some calls from the public. So we'll accept some calls. Go ahead, Mr. Lee, sorry.
No, I was saying, people may have problems that you're not aware of, personal problems, and that may be affecting their performance. And it is good to talk to them because you might be able to help them. Counseling is something that we have to look at in the public service, right? We need that. I was saying that we have public service day where people are recognized. I'm not sure whether enough is being done. I would like to see more awards being given. If it means that I personally have to donate, I'm making that statement now. I personally can make a contribution, and I'm sure maybe the CPU can take me on.
Well, every year there is
a
public service
but
award.
We need to look at maybe more people and how they can be rewarded, because I know people who have been recognized PM and they are proven to be appointed, you know.
Yeah. But there are other consistent issues. For example, the call, please. Hi. Go ahead, please.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you got a radio in the back. There's something is echoing, so I can be on mute. Okay, Mr. PM, I noticed that earlier on you said that the meeting with public servants, right? And I was wondering, as the head of the government, do you think it is fair that you are meeting with public servants without the approval of the union which represents them?
Right.
Right? Because it would seem to me that, and I think that happened sometimes last year, that it would almost be intimidatory to the workers that the Prime Minister comes, especially workers who do not fall under your immediate portfolio. Secondly, next question. You have Mr. Later there with you. He's a trade unionist by all means. I am asking the question, is there any justification why a matter should be pending before a labor tribunal for 10 years and more so, 3 years since the matter completed, just awaiting a decision? Is there justification there? And why hasn't government, rather than having those situations, moved to establish an industrial court so that matters of labor issues can be heard by the industrial court rather than temporary tribunals where the people believe that they have their primary job and the tribunal is just secondary and does not get the urgency it requires? And finally, what is the justification for a person to have worked for 17 years before being appointed and just appointed in the last year, not backdated at all? So the person having worked for 17 years has lost significant benefits. Right? I just need to know what is your opinion on those issues and why should those matters continue to persist?
Yeah. Thank you, Colin. Now, in respect to the Prime Minister meeting with public officers, the Prime Minister is within his constitutional authority to do so. The Constitution provides for any minister to have general direction over a ministry or its portfolio. And staff play a critical role in that effort. The Prime Minister is not negotiating with public officers. The Prime Minister is meeting the public officers to hear their concerns directly, what are the challenges in the workplace. Because at the end of the day, ultimately, the comfort of the public officers in the workplace is that of the cabinet, that of the government. And so it is not out of bounds for any minister or the Prime Minister to meet with public officers on matters relating to the condition of work. And again, we've always maintained them that this is not salary negotiations. So even when people raise issues of salary negotiations, we don't persist with the discussion. This is noted. But how does somebody sit in the ministry, for example, or Prime Minister sit, and not have the opportunity to meet with people who work around him and work with him, and to consult them on policy issues? Because policy come from sometimes from down up, and from up down. So we have to find out sometimes this thing. So is that if a Prime Minister or minister sits in the ministry and not take the opportunity to meet people who work with him, then there's something wrong. The issue of the Labour Tribunal is a matter that has been raised many times. The issue of industrial court is a matter that we have to have consultation on. I can't give a commitment to it, but I accept entirely the fact that sometimes there's a protracted delay, Mr. Later, in the tribunal hearing cases, and it is sometimes the complainant and the respondent sometimes sometimes are at fault.
Sometimes the lawyers too.
The lawyers and people involve lawyers and it's adjourned and people ask for more time. The lawyers don't show up. So what are your views on that, though?
No, I agree with the caller. I think we should be giving serious consideration to establishing an industrial relations court where people will be full-time and will be able to really look at issues. And I agree with the caller. Why should somebody has a matter and for 7 or 10 years that matter is not being resolved? Because those, the people who sit on the tribunal is voluntary service they are providing. They are employed otherwise. The lawyers, that is not priority to the lawyers. If they have a high court case, that takes precedence over tribunal matters. So that is something that needs to be be looked at. The issue the caller raised about meeting with public officers, I think one has to look at it, PM. I think I'm not saying there is nothing wrong in a prime minister meeting with public officers, but you have to look at the timing, and what makes it look bad is if the union is raising certain concerns, and these concerns are not being addressed, but instead of the concerns being addressed, you're hearing the prime minister is meeting with public officers. Then it gives the impression that the PM is not interested in talking to. I'm not saying that is what it is, but people get that impression because the last time I remember we were talking about appointments, PM.
But the public officers didn't get the impression. I mean, the people who got
they
the impression.
did, PM.
No,
they did.
No. I met with them. They were very appreciative of the fact that the prime minister could, in his busy schedule, make time.
I would even repeat some of the things people said.
Anybody who would have made any negative comments would be being politically partisan. I mean, let's be honest with that. If anywhere in the world, my brother, a prime minister would take time and meet public officers, anybody would appreciate that. And the problem we have sometimes is that we look at things too much from a parochial, partisan lens. I have no political motivations by meeting public officers. People write to me with complaints that sometimes are out of my authority, and my view is to hear from them and to see whether I can draw it to the attention of the authorities, and to see where things go. For example, you're a member of the Public Service Union. I'm sorry, PSU, Public Service Commission, PSC, right? You require the ERDs for all of the years. Now, decisions have been taken to fill positions, but you need all of those years. No. I had to take a decision to waive that requirement because it requires a policy decision to waive that requirement and say, let us deal with this present year. So forget about the 13 days the person hasn't gotten the ARD because the supervisor retired, resigned, died, whatever it is. So I don't see anybody who, let's be honest in this country, anybody who, I mean, any person who have a particular motivated leader will be happy about this. And there's nothing fundamentally wrong with this. I think it's a good thing. And if you were to ask me whether I'm going to continue, I'm certainly going to continue.
PM, what I'm saying is this. First of all, we don't want to delay that.
Yeah.
But first of all, the EADRs and having a report, that is not something new. Maybe, again, your senior administrative people have not informed you that over the years, the Public Service Commission has accepted that where you cannot give, and the Public Service Commission has not been asking for a evaluation of every year. The Commission has been accepting reports. So the person has not been appraised for 5 years. For the last year, you can present a report and it is accepted. And that is something that has been done over the years. So it is not something new.
Okay. Now, what is the union, final question to you, what is the union doing to provide support to its membership?
The union is very, very much involved in organizing training for our members. And not only do we provide local trainings, we identify overseas training for our members. We get organizations to which we are affiliated to sponsor. And the government has been very helpful in that regard. There are other services that we provide.
I mean, we've made the union rich. I mean, I've made the union rich since you became Prime Minister.
I think all administrations have assisted the union in that. We're not going into details there, but I believe I would
But I'm the only Prime Minister who has given union cash outside of salaries increases to assist his membership with training, with small social problems.
We appreciate that, we recognize that. What I'm saying, other administrations have done the same. For example, we have a property that is worth over $7 million, and you know that was given by previous administration.
And we gave you contracts
you gave us contracts. So I'm saying, I'm trying not to be partisan. I'm saying everybody has assisted, but we provide student loans, we provide medical loans, we have group insurance. You assist, the union assisted, the government assisted with a preschool. So there are a lot of things that we do to assist our members.
But thank you very much. I want to thank Mr. Later for being here and for engaging us in discussion. I thought this was a very good exchange. We give a commitment to continue the engagement in a structured way, as you suggested, every quarter. I wish you all the best, and I wish you Union well as it continues to represent the interests of public officers. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you. We will take a 2-minute break, and we shall be back. Thank you very much.
We're here with Mr. Kisson, the General Manager of Skerrit Bay and Fortune Hotel. It is part of the journey of the Ministry of Tourism and DDA to visit tourism stakeholders. One, to check on them to see how they've been doing. It has been a challenging time for stakeholders in our industry. So we are going around to see how they have been, and two, how they're preparing to open and implementing the health protocols as instructed by the Ministry of Health. I'm very happy that we could be here today with Mr. Kisson at Fortune Hotel. Fortune Hotel is one of our hotels that has been in the Dominican hotel family for a very long time, and we are pleased to see the expansion work that has taken place prior to being abruptly halted by COVID. But I'm reassured that work will continue, and once work continues, we will see a grand opening hopefully sometime next year to 100 rooms. And that will mean that there'll be more people employed at Fort Young, about 200 people, hopefully.
I must say that I am very impressed with the safety protocols that have been put in place by the management of Fort Young Hotel. It is right in alignment with what the Ministry of Health has been proposing and putting forth. And they have taken sanitation to a new level. And that gives me the assurance that it is a safe environment for us to patronize, as well as our children. And the intent is to promote staycations in Dominica. Summer has begun, and as a mother, I know your kids are maybe asking you, hey, mommy, what are we doing for summer? And so this time around, we want all Dominicans to rediscover Dominica, patronize our local hotels, let's promote staycations here in Dominica. I'm even going as far as saying, let us start our little hikes. It's all part of rediscovering Dominica.
Okay, welcome back. I am joined now by the Secretary of the Cabinet, Ambassador Steve Farrell, and the Chief Personal Officer, Ms. Corinne Privot, to talk to us about ongoing efforts to improve the public service. I believe public sector reform should be constant, and that we should always be seeking ways to increase efficiency, to keep up with the times, and to improve the quality of services offered. So we will be talking about the public sector reform and the public service in general. Welcome, what do you call you, CAPSEC, Secretary to the Cabinet, Ambassador Farrell, and welcome Ms. Privot, the Chief Personal Officer. Now, I believe it is important that we start off with defining what we mean when we say the public service, because we also use the term public sector and interchangeably. How do we define the two terms, CAPSEC?
Okay. Good evening, PM. Good evening, public officers and members of the general public. I think first I should say that I welcome your invitation to discuss the public service at this point of Dominica's development. I also think it's a challenging time with more complex government services required, with less resources, and it's a good time to begin to discuss reform within the context of providing better services to the public, and at the same time ensuring that the public officers themselves really receive a good deal for their services. I wish to also take the opportunity to thank public officers. I always try to do that. Those who have been at the front line, those who well, everybody's back at work now, so I could thank every public officer and to encourage all of us to continue to do our best to do make our contributions, which rarely is tied into a job description. So if we stick to the task ahead, we'll be making a contribution. With reference to the specific question though, I think it's used interchangeably, but there's a difference between the public service and the public sector. The public service, by definition, in the Public Service Act, is isolated from the rest of the public sector by defining in a schedule a list of positions that should form the public service, and therefore everybody who is appointed to that position or acting in those positions are confined to the Public Service Act. These people are, by definition, reporting and appointed by the Public Service Commission, although the government itself, cabinet, would have to approve the positions, and the establishment department on behalf of cabinet would have to set the criteria for the position and to ensure the pay grades and all of that for the positions. In addition to the public service defined in Schedule 1, and I heard earlier Mr. Layton from the union making reference to it, we have a class of non-established officers, and they are supposed to be a class that is not well defined, and that is why he's asking for better conditions for them, because they came about to deal with exigencies and surges in the public service. Some of them were kept on after projects were implemented, and by the good nature of government as a key employer in the country, some of them were kept on, and we'll probably discuss that in more detail. So in addition to the scheduled public officers, there are the non-established officers, and there are contractual officers, and we have a group of now interns. I would probably just say for now that the established officers are 3,009 approximately, and the permanent ones would be 2,156, and temporary 226. The non-established officers are 917 about, and contractual officers stand at about 242 with about 70 interns. These together, about 4,235 would form the public service and sector, because some of them are outside the public service that are under the establishment department. The public sector would be wider than the public service and would include the statutory corporations, all of them that have key government function, either by specialization or the discretion of government for more efficiency. A number of corporations were formed. DASPA, Air Seaport Authority, the WASCO, Aid Bank, Bureau of Standards, there are a number of them, Geothermal Company, there are a number of them. So together they would form the public sector. What the public and private sector has in common, though, is that together they are the agencies that would provide services to the public and to implement government priorities.
That's a very important clarification there and education. Now, CPO, the public often laments the quality of services delivered by the public service. Can you describe for us initiatives that have been put in place to improve the delivery of services to the general public?
Okay, thank you very much, PM. Let me join the Cabinet Secretary again in recognizing our public officers, particularly those who are on the front line and providing services to the public. When we speak of the services that are provided to the public, we are speaking not just about the well-recognized services like welfare, police, fire, healthcare, and education, but also the services where citizens interact with the government, registering, paying and receiving a license, applying for a loan through one of the public sector financing programs, paying for a service or making an inquiry. These are some activities that the public undertakes every day to be able to receive services from the government. We realize that a lot more can be done to enhance or improve the services or the delivery of services to the public. And we are in the process of launching a service delivery improvement program through the Ministry of Governance and Public Service Reform. And that service delivery improvement program will help define models for service delivery and our focus will be on people, processes, and systems. So sometimes when we think of service, we think of customer service. So people think, well, perhaps the individual who is serving me is probably not providing the best service. But outside of just people, we have systems and processes that also, cause issues in the system. So we are looking at the use of technology. How do we utilize technology to ensure that individuals can receive services in a faster and more efficient manner? Decentralization of services, I know that's something that you have spoken about, PM. We have people who live, in Marigot, in Portsmouth. Do they have to come to town to get some of the services? So we are working with the various ministries. We have conducted an assessment and prepared a database of all the services provided by government and we are looking at several aspects: the fees, the forms, the place where the service is being provided, the means by which the service is being provided, and assessing these aspects of the service, we are going to look at how can we improve each aspect of service delivery. So how can we make payment easier? Making payment easier may mean that we may need to have more credit card machines at various government offices. It may also mean that we may need to utilize e-payment technology, and I'm very happy that we're working with the ICT department and the Ministry of Public Works and Digital Economy to establish an e-payment portal. That is in advanced stages. We are working with the Ministry of Finance and the National Bank to ensure that we can have this e-payment portal launched very soon. And the idea would be that you can pay for basic government services, a driver's license. There are some services that already exist with the Inland Revenue, but we want to expand that. You may need a marriage license or, some other service, and you could just go online at your home and, make a payment, or someone can pay from overseas for you. These are some things that make things more efficient in the system.
But you mentioned the presence of technology and innovation. I mean, are we keeping up with the times? Are we making necessary changes to ensure that technology and the advancements in technology are utilized?
We are doing our best. I don't want to speak for the Ministry of Public Works, but you'll probably be aware that we do have the digital economy unit that
and
will
the $28 million
right,
from the World Bank.
From the World Bank. And PM, I'm very pleased we've been able to work with the Ministry of Public Works on that. Quite a huge chunk of that amount is going towards e-services, e-government services. So that will assist us in acquiring the required technology and systems and training to ensure that we can bring the public sector into the technology age, and that we can introduce innovation. In the manifesto, I know that there was reference made to kiosks being put at the airport to facilitate ease of immigration. And there are a number of other areas that have been identified for technology. We're looking at placing kiosks at various government offices so that you may not have to follow a line. You can fill out your application form from a kiosk, and then the application goes through. The ICT department is working on digitizing forms so that you would not have to print a form, write it out, and then walk to an office. You can go online, you can fill out the form, all the information goes to the office, they start processing it in advance. These are some ways that we see the public sector being able to provide improved delivery of the services.
So based on what you're saying to us, we should all be excited that at last we may see some major transformation where technology is concerned.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now, Capsec, the government has committed to undertaking a reclassification exercise. And in fact, I know work has begun on that front. What is reclassification, and how will it impact the public service?
This is, I think, probably one of the most exciting public service reforms that have been announced in recent time. And although public services go through modernization and reform all the time, I think the government's articulation of reclassification goes much deeper with the Dominican context than generally would countries refer to. So job evaluation has been done before. We had one in 2014 or 13, and all it did was to assess the jobs as they are and see if we can regrade those jobs. I think what has been announced in reflecting on government's policies and the statement made over the past couple of years, and two of the innovations of the last budget, which dealt with teachers and nursing. This one goes through a review of the actual structures of ministries, and we are still very excited by the mix of portfolios directed towards a dynamic Dominica, and I think that is one of the outcomes of the dynamic Dominica process to actually go into the public service and align it to those visions. So you will see an in-depth review of the structure of the public service, department by department. So agriculture and every other ministry will have to ask themselves, what is a modern agriculture ministry supposed to look like? What is the digital economy supposed to look like? And therefore we'll get the best set and classes of jobs that should fit its sector. And it's only then we will be able to lend on a job evaluation exercise on those. So that the reclassification is more far-reaching. It will change the whole landscape of the public service, not just the classes of jobs, but the jobs themselves, the operating procedures, and all the processes that go with the system will be reviewed under that process. It will be part of modernization. But essentially, as CP was saying, at the end of the exercise, the modernization of the public service after classification will include using ICT and getting better systems to cut wastage, to improve efficiencies, and to give better value for money. As we said a while ago, the services are increasing, but the revenue is well, cannot match. I shouldn't say it's less and less, but it can't match the demands made on the public service. So that would be a far-reaching area, and I think we look forward to it. Some work has begun on the well.
No, I mean, we talk about this reclassification. I mean, everything we do in the public service must now relate to the consumers of our services, the public.
Sure.
How does the public stand to benefit from this reclassification exercise?
Well, to begin with, the modernization of the systems will automatically change the level and quality of services that they offer. So the process will change not just the officers in agriculture, for example. It will change the way we do agriculture. The digital economy would not just help us restructure. They will improve on the services that we offer to the consumers. As CPO said, most things online and all of that. And I think the public service itself will be more targeted and aligned at productivity. We will reduce wastage, we'll have a better structure to deliver on government's policy for the next maybe 20 years, I hope.
Yeah, thank you, Capsec. CPO, what actions have we taken thus far to ensure that we can have this process of reclassification completed?
So the process of reclassification is an ongoing process. Some people may be aware that we did start some work a couple of years ago. This was a job evaluation exercise. There were some recommendations made from that study, that exercise. However, you know, we've had some setbacks with Tropical Storm Erica and Hurricane Maria, but it has given us an opportunity to reevaluate our priorities, because now we have the Climate Resilience Recovery Plan, we have the National Resilience Development Strategy. So we are working with CARICAD, and we've put together a scope of works which has been approved by Cabinet for an RFP to be sent out to look at what the focus should be for reclassification. I want to thank the staff of the Reform Management Unit, which has been working on the scope of work and the RFP for CARICAD. We've already requested from CARICAD training in advance of the process beginning in job description review and evaluation. So we will train a cadre of public officers who will be able to assist with reviewing our existing job descriptions, looking at our existing systems, and working with CARICAD to make recommendations. So we are getting there. I'm very pleased that we've been able to finalize the scope of works and the RFP, and we are awaiting a response from CARICAD.
Well, I'm happy that we're making progress, because this, I believe, is a major priority for the country, and it will certainly address a number of the challenges which public officers and the general public have been making about the public service and the public sector in general. Now, I have a WhatsApp message or question. Say, good evening, PM. I'm very much concerned about appointment of teachers. I have been a teacher for 12 years and have completed my required training at the Dominica State College. I am yet to get appointed and earn a salary that reflects my skills and qualifications. Can you please advise when this issue will be addressed? This is a wonderful question, well written. All right. Capsec, I mean,
Yeah.
I know for many public officers, that's what they want to listen to. I mean, that's the juicy part.
This is this is the probably the most topical and most well publicized complaints about public from public officers, and I noticed these days from the members of the public.
But can you describe the process? Because I think
it's important that we understand the process. The first the 3,000 I just mentioned from the definition of the public service, the 3,006 positions that are scheduled form the main public service. When people talk about public service, that's what we're talking about. And the complement of staff is divided across ministries to provide the best possible service given. I mean, a number of ministries have to make do with what staff in the house. Some want to expand and so. But the point I'm making though is that unless there is a vacancy within that schedule, there is not a vacancy. And even if you come, as a matter of fact, the education system, thanks to government, is so competitive now that we have a majority of junior clerks with degrees and master's degree. So the qualification gets you at the door, but you still have to wait for the process to provide vacancies, either by expanding the ministry or by when people retire. So you get that complaint very often, and I bet CPU had to investigate a number of them. So the public service appointments themselves come from recommendations from the public service, the permanent secretaries of various ministries and departments, and they go to the Public Service Commission. The commission is an independent body, and therefore the commission has its own criteria by law of how to evaluate and assess public officers, and they make the decisions. Another interesting consideration that people must understand though is that even if you are in a post, it's a public service post, and therefore the public service-wide applications are waiting, and therefore you may be in a post, and you made that point when you were talking to the junior clerks. You may be in a position as a junior clerk, but there's a junior clerk who is there longer than you, and so that position may well be filled, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will be filled with you in it.
So the Public Service Commission is not looking at who is in that vacant post. It looks at all
eligible officers must be considered. All eligible officers must be considered. And the thing is that they have about, I think the last time I checked, 12 or so criteria for promotion, which doesn't necessarily fit with what the person's complaint is. So they look at, they look at merit and your qualifications and all of that, but they also can carry out their own investigations. So it's an independent assessment.
Hold a second, please. Yeah. No call. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean that because you are before the commission that you will get the position. And there are two points to the two caveats to the Public Service Commission. However, and you make that point all the time, is that senior officers would require after the commission no objection of the Prime Minister before the President would issue any appointments. And obviously, that is a constitutional requirement. It has no condition set to it. And therefore, we have to factor that into the process.
1 second. A telephone call, please. Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Yes.
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me?
Sure. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, okay. Thanks a lot. A very good program. In fact, I wanted to ask Mr. Later a question, but he had to leave. But now that you have the two public officers there, I want to ask a question. First of all, I know Ms. Prevost, you just started in the position, so it's relatively new for you, although you are a very trained and qualified person. But there's a lot of persons are complaining that they have been writing applications to the public service seeking enlistment, and they're not getting any response. Another thing is, persons are complaining that they have been writing letters to the ministries and nobody acknowledged receipt of the letter. I want to know what you have in place to make that sort of response more efficient. And I can tell you that just last week, I know two persons wrote to the fire service and to the OASCO. And within 7 days, they wrote back and said, we acknowledge receipt of your letter. There's no vacancy. So I think in the public service, they have to try to improve on the efficiency. Another thing is, I do not want to give too much information here, but on the question of the public and public service commission and police service commission, I think sometimes, although you might want to depart from the traditional thing, but I think you should have some senior public servant on the public service commission, and also at least a senior police officer who has knowledge and experience. Because we had a typical example there with this case with this lady who was transferred from the post office. To me, I mean, the legal people should have seen that the authority came from His Excellency and so on. And when they saw this thing and the lady made the query, it should have been reviewed by a competent authority to realize that the procedure was wrong. I can comment more, but I won't take too much time. I'm listening. Thank you very much. Good night.
Now, we will come back to the gentleman's question in a while, but I wanted to continue to deal with the issue of the vacant positions. CPO, I mean, what progress has been made to fill the vacant positions and provide opportunities for upward mobility, which is a major concern, as we all recognize, for the public officers?
Yes, well, PM, we do recognize that is a challenge. As CAPSEC said, there is a process. We understand that there are several steps in the process that also need to be reviewed and improved. One of the areas Mr. Later mentioned was the issue of outstanding EADRs. And we do know that sometimes, that is a challenge. But we are working from the Establishment Personnel and Training Department with public officers to provide training on completion of the ADR. As a matter of fact, just last week, we held an online training via Zoom for about 105 public officers. And we are encouraging public officers at every level to take ownership of the process. So it's not just, well, my supervisor has to fill out my EADR, but I also have to take ownership. And if it's not being done, I need to be appraised. I've been here for a year, I've been here for 2 years. What are we doing about my performance? What do you think? It should be a consultative process.
Can the public officer bypass his supervisor and say right to the Secretary of the Cabinet or the CPO? Because
to the commission too.
Normally you have to write through to somebody before it gets to the higher authority like yourself.
Yes, that can be done for sure. And we are raising this issue with the ministries, and we are working with them to ensure that is fixed. But when we come back to the issue of filling vacant positions, we've been working with the ministries. We're trying to go through it in a systematic process. CAPSEC was speaking earlier about the issue of junior clerks. You may be in a vacant position and you may just be there for about 6 months in your ministry, but there may be someone in another ministry who has been there for a few years, and they are not in a vacant position. So from the establishment department, we are looking at it from a comprehensive level, particularly for the junior level officers, messengers, drivers, junior clerks, senior clerks, EOs, and so on, and we are going up the line. But we are looking at the government service. How many vacancies exist in the service right now for junior clerks? How many junior clerks do we have who are not appointed? How long have they been in the service? And if you look at it,
you have the issue of acting for a very long time, and there may be reasons why you have people who are seconded. There are people on study leave. But shouldn't the issue of secondment and study leave be regulated though? Much better, because should somebody be seconded for 7, 10 years, 12 years? Because if you have a senior person who is seconded, it means there's a whole line of people who have to continue to act.
We address that in the new proposed legislation, and the proposal is that somebody goes for one period of 2 years, and you make a choice after that of whether you stay with the agency that you are seconded to or you come back to the system. So I think that one is addressed. And I think the issue of appointments is also addressed by proposing that you should not be acting for more than 2 years in a position before you, in a vacant position before you're appointed.
Because people acting in vacant positions, people are saying, look, if that person is not performing, why don't you send the person back to a substantive post?
Well, that is a issue of a more cultural nature. It has to do with the entire dynamics of the public service, disciplinary processes and all of that, that we are hoping that we can enforce a little more in the future.
So we're giving the public servants and the public the assurance tonight, both your two top public officers dealing with personal issues there. You're the head of the public service, the chief personal officer. Are we giving the people the assurance that every effort is being made to address the issue of appointments?
Yeah, we could say that safely. I think the delays that we have experienced in the past, thanks to involvement from you, government, we've seen a move now to try to appoint with much speed all vacant positions, regardless of the reason why they were delayed. And I'm hoping that if the commitment for legislation before the year is up is made, that the new system itself regulates more strictly the promotion and upward mobility of public officers.
Let's take a call, please. Hello?
Hello, good evening PM and good evening CAPSEC and CPO. Yes, first of all, I just want to say clearly that whoever is receiving the calls should probably take the call when people call, because it is not nice that somebody will call in like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times and connecting and they're not getting through. Having said this, I wanted to ask Mr. Later a question as well, because I think one of his executive members called while he was on. And I wanted to ask a specific question. Maybe I can ask Mr. Farrell that question, sir. Do you believe it is fair, or it is right, or it is professional for the Public Service Union to meet an opposition party and sign a contract or agreement with them right before an election? And as the Prime Minister said, the law gives him the right to meet with public officers. I guess the caller had an issue with that. But do you believe it is professional for the same union to meet this opposition party to sign contract with them as it relates to the public office? Secondly, on the whole question of data collection, if, for example, that I call the Minister of Education, for example, and raise an issue or want to investigate something, I want to meet the minister or something, that information is not collected, as far as I know, and enter into a system whereby if I call next week, that they can go into the computer, type in my name or my date of birth or what have you, and get that information of which I probably speak to them last week about. Do you think that maybe that is something that the public service or the ministry can consider? Because I know here in the United Kingdom where I live, that is being done. Once you call, they ask you your date of birth, they enter it in the system, and all calls you made from whatever time it has just popping up on the screen, and they can make reference to your queries which you have. Because we have situations, in closing, where people saying, I cannot see a letter, or I cannot remember when you call, I don't know when this and that happened. PM CAPSEC, do you think that is something that you can consider? If you understand what I'm saying. Have a good evening. PM, good evening to you, sir.
Thank you. We will react first to the question about the response. Well, he's raising the same question about the responsiveness or the lack thereof of the public service. How do you go about addressing this? I mean, people write to us in the public service, you know, they call, we don't return calls, we don't respond to the correspondences.
Yes, PM. Well, this is part of the service delivery improvement that we spoke about earlier. And how do we ensure that we can improve the services that we deliver to the public? Inquiries, you know, that's part of the process. Somebody calls to ask a question. Somebody calls to find out, you know, when they can see a minister, or when they can acquire a service. Training is one of the areas that we are definitely undertaking. The new entrance training is something that Mr. Later mentioned. We are trying to ensure that we can clear the backlog next week. In the next 2 weeks, we are also going to be having a new entrance training for our junior clerks and junior level officers. But we do acknowledge a point. I really like the idea of a system that allows you to enter, because we are still writing notes, you know, on post-its that we pass on to the PS or to the minister. But I really like the idea, thank you very much, caller, that we should be able to enter this into a database, and we see that is something that ICT can provide.
No, both CAPSEC and CPO, I mean, COVID-19 has been around for us for some time. We've had to send, as public officers, to work from home, which is an unprecedented occurrence. What lessons have we learned, and on how will it impact the public service moving forward?
Well, COVID-19 really allowed us to see work differently. For the period of time that we worked from home, we do appreciate that it was a challenge. We made varying success in different ministries based on the type of work that you did. Technical officers were probably better able to monitor their projects, prepare reports, conduct research. And we have taken advantage of some of the lessons that we've learned, and we are going to implement them moving forward. I can give, for example, the use of virtual meetings. And the Cabinet Secretary can say that all of our Committee of Permanent Secretaries meetings are via Zoom. The Adult Education Division, and I'm not being biased because it's my ministry, we undertook the challenge to provide training online via Zoom, and this was really successful. We've had thousands of people, both in Dominica and overseas, participate in our online training. I mean, we've been baking for the last 4 weeks. I've been baking bread every week, CAPSEC. But, we've been able to use, as well in the school system, e-learning and online tools. We have expanded the use of our websites, increased the use of email, and we expect that going forward, post-COVID, that these are systems that will remain in the public service. So we've learned some lessons.
Thank you. I'll come to you, CAPSEC. Let's take a caller, please.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes. Sorry.
No problem.
Go ahead.
The problem I have with the service, they need training in customer service very badly. The people don't answer your phone calls. They don't return your phone calls. You issue documents to the different ministries. They lose it. I've been to the ministry 4 or 5 times, and they have lost the document over 3 times. I mean, this is so ridiculous. You talk about digital economy, you need human resource to enter the information. You need human resource to answer the phones. Something needs to be done about the cell phones. You go to an office, the young lady is on a cell phone, she doesn't even say, "Good afternoon, can I help you?" They just look up at you and open their eyes wide like though you're disturbing them. Something needs to be done about the cell phones. The cell phones will be put away before they enter into the offices. I mean, it's so bad that right now at the stage where I want to get out of Dominica because it's so frustrating to the business with government. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, caller, for your comment / question. CAPSEC, you want to respond to or react to the gentleman?
These are some of the complaints that we get also, and I think we are looking heavily on the ICT programs that we have. I think all of those things will be monitored more speedily, more timely when we have a proper database and monitoring mechanism. But with reference to the cell phones, we have for the past couple of months been discussing a cell phone policy that we hope to bring forward. But we do take the point that cell phones are a distraction, and we should do everything to minimize them and get them out of the workplace. One of the issues that we have with stopping cell phones now is in the absence of a proper data management system. We rely on cell phones ourselves, especially during the COVID. I mean, you use people's private phones to get messages across. So we are very conscious of the problem, but we're hoping that the new ICT upgrade will help us monitor better the information flow within the ministry, and therefore we can eliminate the use of cell phones, because we'll have a competent system that can respond almost instantaneously to people's comments.
But do you think, I mean, we need to look at maybe dedicated officers at the various ministries to deal with customer relations issues? So if I am to go to the Ministry of Education to get a service, I mean, shouldn't there be a desk that I could go to and say, look, I am here to see the minister, I am here to see the permanent secretary, or I am here to follow up on an application for a scholarship grant? I'm sure we're looking at this because
it makes sense, PM, except that we would have to tie it into entire process, including our listing of telephones and all that, as we rationalize. Because if you have a customer service base, then you have to ensure that all calls go through that base.
Yeah.
Some ministries have about 10, 15 extensions, so people are used to calling different offices. So we'll have to continue reviewing it. It is on the program, and we're hoping that we can get the complaints mechanism and all of those things done in line with the...
Because you come to the financial center, for example, or the old ministry building, but you interact with security personnel.
Yeah, that we can change.
You know, they know government employee that you interact with to direct people and so on. Because the security guy, his role is for security. You know,
right.
So I believe that we may want to look at this issue of placing help desk or information desk at the various ministries. You know, in terms of the financial center, it could be on the ground floor. You know, I'm here to see the financial secretary, which floor, okay, and call up and say, well, this person is here to see you, send him up and so forth. Because there are times people come to see me. I have an appointment, but the security downstairs won't let them go. I mean, and it's not their fault that they won't let them go because they're not aware, and so there's nobody there who can contact. Even the delivery of mail to the government department. So I really believe that we need to look at this because this is a perennial complaint. And the question is, how do we go about addressing this? And now that you have, I mean, let's face it, let's be fair. All of these government departments now are enclosed, the offices. Everybody has a private office and cubicles and so on, and you can hardly see anybody.
Yeah.
So
I can give an update,
sure.
because this is a great idea. It's something we've been discussing from the Ministry of Governance. One of the things that we looked at in terms of improving the delivery of service is also the physical location. So we are starting with the government headquarters. Very soon you will come there. We are setting up an information customer service desk on the ground floor. We've already set up a television screen for digital information to be provided. So when you come, you can see ministries, what floor, you know, what services are available. We'll have videos that will be played throughout the day, and we will have an individual who is there will be able to provide the service. And we want to be able to do that at each ministry.
I believe too that the services that the public we provide is also a reflection of our education system. I believe we have to get people to appreciate that. The whole concept of being courteous, being respectful, being accountable, you know, and the gentleman made the point that he would go to a ministry, person on the phone, they don't acknowledge the person. I mean, these are basic things. I mean, in many respects, you don't have to go to school
and everybody should
to be taught these things. And I think we have to preach more personal responsibility, because let's face it, anything that goes wrong in the public service or public sector, they blame me. You see, and some have absolutely nothing to do with that. I'm not aware of it. I think we have to start speaking about personal responsibility. Somebody has a position, you have certain functions and responsibilities, you have to be called to account. So I think it's something that we need to look at very, very seriously in public service if we're to improve. Because all the reforms are fine, the reforms will tell you what the problems are, but unless we have a predisposition towards changing our mindset, we can have a challenge, my respectful view. But these are very progressive actions that we're taking, and I'm hoping that and praying that we can advance those efforts towards the realization of a more improved public service and a better satisfaction on the part of the public and the public officers. Now the issue of perhaps we're in the hurricane season. The state has an overall responsibility for the preparedness of the country for any natural disaster. Or external risk. In this case, we're preparing for the hurricane season. What efforts have we made to ensure that from the public service standpoint or the public sector standpoint, we are prepared for the hurricane season?
Right, Pam, I'll probably take off from the last NEPO meeting, which is the National Emergency Planning Organization. And I think from my last check, all of the ministries the subcommittees are manned by ministries. So most of those committees are meeting based on your directive to improve their own terms of reference, communication, supplies, the housing, shelter, environment, and other subcommittees. But at the same time, ministries are asked now to review their own disaster plans to ensure that the ministry itself is prepared. So apart from preparing the program for the national program, you have to prepare your own ministry's disaster plan.
Okay, 1 second. We have a call. Hello.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Prime Minister, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much.
Okay. So, in regards to communication, it took me about 4 years to actually get land document from purchase and in Dominica. Everything that you do, business in Dominica, does take a long process, a very, very long process. Okay? So the question is communication between ministries and other communication among governments is too much not in collaboration. This is the frustration that people, dominant leaders in the United States like myself, is going through. Okay? For example, right now everyone is talking about the flights coming into Dominica because of the COVID, but no one is talking about the flights leaving the country. And what I mean, like in terms of leaving the country, there's a lot of foreigners that is in Dominica that wants to leave out to the business. Now, as a business person myself, and I'm one of your students, by the way, as a business person in the States, I want to come to Dominica and do some business. But no, I don't want to come down and get stuck because of business that I have to do in the U.S. So we want to have a much more clear communication within the ministries when it comes to the government. And in regards to the data, in terms of having one system where it's easily accessible for everyone, that is a very, very good idea. Especially also in the healthcare system. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the health, because I manage in the healthcare system also, right? And we need that type of system ASAP so that we can be up to date like the modern world. And this is your former student, Kudian, PSS.
I recognize the voice, my brother. I give you the assurance you won't get stuck in Dominica. Dominica is the safest place to be in the world now with this COVID-19. So we look forward to your returning home and spending some time with us. I mean, we recognize this issue about, the fact is, the public sector is still transacting with paper. Mm-hmm. So everything is written. So if you go to one government department, they have to go to this file. Mm-hmm. And then they're supposed to be linked to another department, but there's no link because it's paper. They have to take this file and walk across. So even when things require my approval under the Constitution or in any particular law, they have to walk with some huge files across, you know. So this is why we recognize, and even in the Dominican Labour Party's manifesto, this is why we're very, very clear on the digital economy and ensuring that we move towards the modernization of the economy and the transactions within the public sector by using technology. And we have gone very speedily. Election was just, December, and we've already contracted a loan of $28 million United States dollars towards efforts to improve, to implementing that modern way of conducting business. So the call which the suggestion which the caller from the United Kingdom made about going on the system and typing his name and his little bill, these are things that we're talking about. So you could go to the registry and they will be able to pull up your name and see your information, or go to the Ministry of Education, pull up your name and see your information there and have your information there. So this is what we're doing, and this is why we've also put in a particular portfolio, the Ministry of Public Works and the digital economy, to highlight the high level of importance that we have for this. And we have a very talented young person, in the person of Cassidy Lavin, the minister, who's been leading this and making some strong efforts in this. And I'm hoping that I can bring him on the program soon so that he can share with the public the various aspects and components to the digital economy and the attendant benefits to us. I believe that if we approve it, if we implement it properly, and or people understand how it works, because sometimes we have an aversion to technology so people are not interested in doing online banking, and so forth. We still want to go to the lines and wait in the banks for several hours. So we have to try to also get our people to understand it, because what COVID-19 has taught us is that there's vast inequality where technology is concerned and access to technology is concerned, and we need to address this. And we believe that the digital economy, the efforts within the digital economy, will certainly address a number of those points that you have raised, my friend, and of course previous callers. Capsec, I think we're running out of time. I believe that we have to continue that conversation because there's so many other areas that I wanted to talk about that are germane to the delivery of services, the concerns of the public officers, and also how the public view the government in terms of its responsiveness and its communication. I mean, but I want to say to all of us, there's some positive things, and many positive things happen in public service. I mean, you saw how with the efforts of the public servants, we've been able to manage COVID-19. In a very exceptional way, and these are public officers. You go to the schools, and there are many teachers who give the extra effort to ensure that every child learns and every child does well. We have many doctors and nurses who will go the extra mile to ensure that we are taken care of. You go to various government departments, and people will walk you through the process and ensure that you get the help that you need. So I think sometimes it's important for us to highlight the positive things that are happening. And I think if we, in psychology, there's a negative reinforcement and a positive reinforcement. And I like to focus more on the positive reinforcement. So we speak about the positive things and let people understand the positive things that they need to do, rather than focusing on the negative, because sometimes people do negative things to get attention. And so if we encourage positive things, and people do positive things to get attention, that's what we need. But I want to say to the public officers who have been waiting in the wilderness for appointments, serious efforts have been made, and the Minister for the Public Service is on next, and she will highlight those efforts. But it is something that we have to address. I wouldn't say it is an injustice to you, because I don't think anybody is doing it deliberately. It is just how the system functions, and we have to find ways of making the system work for you and for everybody. So Capsec, I want to thank you for being here. You have a wealth of experience in the public service, having worked in so many various departments in many different capacities, and I think the public service in the country is very fortunate to have your and to have your commitment to the country. You could have left Dominica and go elsewhere in the Kingdom, meet your family there like everybody else. It's not about you. You decided to stay and make a contribution. So I want to thank you on behalf of the people of Dominica for your continued service to the nation. And of course, PS Prevost, CPO, we want to thank you. You guys are young people, not old like me. So a lot depends on your efforts, and we're very pleased with the professionalism that you have displayed and the great capacity that you have. And I want to say to the public, I don't give people marks for free. So when I say something positive, somebody, the person really has earned it. And I must say that yourselves have earned this commendation. So I want to thank you, and let us continue to work together for the greater good of the people of Dominica. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
And look forward to a productive week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take a small break, and we shall come back to you soon. Thank you.
Shelters. Contact the Office of Disaster Management for information on shelters closest to you. Have disaster supplies on hand, non-perishable canned food and water, portable battery-operated radios, flashlights and extra batteries, essential medicines, first aid kits, cash and bank cards. In the home, protect your windows. A low-cost approach is to put up plywood panels. Trim branches away from your home and cut all dead or weak branches on any trees on your property. Check into your home and auto insurance. Confirm that policies are valid and coverage is appropriate. Make arrangements for pets and livestock. Develop an emergency communication plan. Make sure that all family members know what to do. Teach family members how and when to turn off gas, electricity, and water. During a hurricane watch, listen to the radio or television for hurricane progress reports. Avoid open flames such as candles and kerosene lamps as a source of light. If power is lost, turn off major appliances to reduce power surge when electricity is restored. Store drinking water in clean jugs, bottles, and cooking utensils. During a hurricane warning, if you need to evacuate your home, lock up and go to the nearest shelter. Take blankets or sleeping bags to the shelter. Listen constantly to a radio or television for official instructions. Store valuables and personal papers in a waterproof container on the highest level of your home. Stay inside, away from windows and glass doors.
Okay, welcome back. We created the Ministry of Governance, the Public Service Reform, Citizens Empowerment, Social Justice, and Ecclesiastical Affairs to provide policy direction for public service reform and modernization. The ministry has been mandated to strengthen linkages between society and the government and strengthen public institutions, and has begun implementation of the plans we have articulated. I am now joined by my friend and colleague, the Honorable Minister, Honorable Greta Roberts. Welcome to Anupali, the fourth edition. This is the fourth Sunday that we have in this program. We want to welcome you.
Thank you.
Now, I have some very wonderful friends in Montjean, River-Surique, and Grafton. How are things these days?
Wonderful. Things are great. PM, you just came maybe 3 weeks ago to hand over the 64 apartments, and it's like it's Christmas in Grafton because curtains are up and people are happy and moving things around and settees are coming in, so people are happy.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that because the hurricane did in fact impact Grafton dramatically.
And it's, as I said before, it's a load off my back knowing that we have less people to worry about during the hurricane season. With regards to Monjondo, we have to work on completing the houses for them. At least if we can do that before anything happens, then that should work out.
Because there's some basic things, windows,
basic things,
and plastering,
windows, doors,
and doors.
rendering, and we're ready to go.
Well, how much money do you need for this, sir?
Well,
that's what.
I think we would have to.
200. Okay. Okay, but I will look at this.
It's nothing much to complete, so we can do that and make everybody happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, there's some roads that we need to do in there.
Oh, definitely. The Monjon Road in particular, because it's actually falling apart. So we have to see.
Is it the main road or the village road?
Village road. The village road. It's right close to the school, right next to the school.
Is a retaining wall has to be constructed?
Yes, I would think so. I would think so. Yes. If we can do that, then we have some happy constituents.
Okay, so I have taken note of this as Minister of Finance, and we'll ensure that we can get these things sorted out so that my friends up in Montjean River can be happier than they currently are. But I want to thank you again, Minister, for being here. You're a new minister. They'll call you a freshman. Just 6 months on the job and already making strides with public sector reform. What are some of the areas you are focusing on to help create a more effective service?
Well, as a new ministry, what we did, we had set some priority targets. And included among them, of course, was the talked about modernization of the public service to include reclassification and restructuring. We are also including in that the improvement in our delivery of service, to the public, and based on what I've been hearing tonight from the callers, then we have a lot of work to do in that area. We are also looking at creating a more conducive working environment for the officers, and that would include upgrading government buildings as well, because some of them are in a dire state of repairs. The training and staff development, that is also one of our priorities, and of course the much talked about appointment of officers within the service. Yes.
But can you also speak to initiatives that have already been taken to bring a change to how we do things? Because you heard the public and you interact with them. You know, you're more so now being the Minister responsible for the public service. You know, what are we doing to bring about that change in attitude in terms of service delivery?
Service delivery. Well, to be honest with you, PM, what we did really was to try to create, I think PS alluded to that earlier, a database of the services that we are providing to the public. And based on that, to see how well we can improve in a more efficient and timely manner. So this we are working on. And now that we have heard from the public, I think PS should have taken notes. I did myself. So we can sit down tomorrow and see what more we can add to what has to be done to improve the services in the public service. With creating a more conducive working environment, we did a walkthrough. I actually joined them on that. And we noticed that some of the offices needed some maybe more office space. We had a lot of documents that we probably need to see how we can manage in a way that it could ease up the space in the offices. So we are looking at that as well. But we have done some work in the area. We have been painting. I think anybody who has come to the ministry, to the government headquarters would have noticed the changes.
Some improvements there.
Oh yes, there are improvements there. PS alluded to that earlier as well. And we are trying our best to see how well we can work with the washrooms, because this is a major area of concern as well. So with
but
all
clearly,
this,
we have to pursue more vigorously, I believe, the construction of the new public service building on High Street.
Oh, yes.
Because I believe the old ministry building, as you call it, has outlived its usefulness and so on.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Now, you have just come from the school system. You served first as a teacher and then as a school principal. What are your views on how we could better assist teachers within the system?
Yeah, boy, I had a feeling that question would come up, you know. Teaching has always been a passion of mine. And my being out of the service in no way diminishes the value that I place on teachers or the teaching service. But I believe as the Minister of Public Service, I am in a better position, actually in the best position, to assist not only teachers, but all categories of public servants. And with our modernization of the public service, it will bring about much needed changes that will benefit all officers regardless of where they work. So teachers can be assured that I will be taking care of them as a former teacher and school principal.
Well, I'm sure you have many teachers, including myself as a former teacher, smiling. So we look forward to you keeping to your commitment to our teachers and, of course, the wider public service, as you indicated.
Yes.
In respect to quality standards within the service, what are your views on how can we get those standards set, though?
Well, the main reason for setting standards is to improve the quality of service delivered. Standards more or less serve as a guide to gauge the extent to which your objectives can be achieved. And whilst there are varied perspectives as to what actually constitutes quality when it comes to standards, I think in the public service, we should probably view it as a process of negotiation with the people we serve. Because the people we serve are the reasons why we exist as public officers. And this mindset we should use to drive the modernization process. So in my view, in setting quality standards in the public service, we should probably be focused on meeting and exceeding the expectations of the people that we serve in the public. It has to be ongoing though, because this is not something that can happen easily and in one effort. But the question remains, what services do we provide? And how does the public feel about the provision of the services? And as you can hear from what people are saying, we have some work to do. So I would probably see how we can recommend maybe some suggestion boxes, PS, surveys, and focus groups, so people can actually say how they feel, and we will review this and make recommendations for improvement.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we really have to find a way of addressing the concerns of the public and the criticisms of the public, because after all, I mean, we are the servants, and I think in many respects we fail to recognize that. I think we need to recognize that we have to serve the public, and to serve people, people must have access to us. And not only say us, I mean the whole public sector and the whole public service. I'm not talking about politicians per se. Yeah. But now we have the issue of capacity building. Surely government has a responsibility in that regard to ensure that our public officers access opportunities for self-development that results in increased productivity and improved outputs. Yeah. What are the plans of your ministry to assist with building capacity within the public service?
Well, PM, I totally agree with you that is required, because if we expect our officers to successfully execute the policies and plans within the service, then capacity building is key. We have been engaging in capacity building as a ministry. I don't know how much time we have because we have done so much. Sure. But we have conducted local training on an annual basis. And how we do this is we collaborate with other ministries to find out what are the needs and the gaps within the service. And what we do is to create a calendar of activities that we can use. And we employ the services, well, voluntarily that is, of the public, both the public and the private sector, to assist us with the training in this regard. So we have looked at topics like professionalism and ethics, leadership, performance appraisal systems, because this is an area that needs a little assistance there, and team building and conflict resolution. In addition to that, every ministry is also encouraged to do some on-the-job training based on what they have seen necessary for the ministry, especially those who have direct interaction with the public. And this comes in for the caller who called about coming to the office and people on their cell phones. So this would assist as well in how well we can meet the public.
No, I'm going to come back to ask you a question about appointments in public service, because that is an important point. But we have a caller. Caller, please. Sorry for the wait, my dear. Hello? The person is not there. Our sincere apologies.
Sorry about that.
All public officers, or most of them listening, are really concerned about the appointments in public service. So teachers, I mean, I have two teachers who've been working for 19 years and not appointed, you know, and there are many junior clerks in particular who are not appointed for many years. People get every 6 months, they get a letter of renewal or extension. Sorry, caller, please.
Hello, good evening to you.
Yes, sir, good evening.
How are you, PM?
I'm very well, thank you, my friend.
Good. Now, PM, I've got a lot. Oh, I can hear something in the background. I've got a land problem which needs to be settled by ministry. Any chance of having a discussion with you offline, please?
Okay, we will take your number and we'll contact you, okay?
Okay, PM, thank you very much.
So we'll contact you this evening or tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, my brother. No appointments. I mean, what progress we have made? I mean, the Secretary of the Cabinet and the CPO told us that efforts have been made, but do we have numbers? I mean, you know.
Oh yes, why you think I'm smiling so much? I mean, we have been working on that, PM, tirelessly to try to at least do something for public officers. So I'm happy to inform you that maybe during the last 6 months, we have worked on this and we have now processed and submitted recommendations to the Public Service Commission for approval of different categories of public officers. So this includes, well, you had asked about teaching, so I will go with teaching first. So this includes 60 in the teaching service.
60.
60. A lot of them, you know.
60.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
To include principals, qualified teachers, and the graduate teachers. We have 30 junior clerks.
Yeah.
That's a promise kept.
That's right.
Because we had promised them that we would do something. And then we still have about 40 or more so officers from general positions within the service. So all these have been submitted.
So 130, if my math is correct, 130 positions.
Yeah.
Before the Public Service
Before
Commission.
the Public Service Commission. So these people can expect appointments.
But we really, I believe, I've said so before to yourself and the Secretary of Cabinet, that we need to make these things known in the public domain or within the public service, because there's great anxiety among public officers. They do not know where this stuff is. And most people tell them it's on my desk. I don't know how it's on my desk. Oh, it's on the Prime Minister's desk. My Prime Minister's desk, you know. A phone call, please.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, who is this?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, is this Mr. PM?
Yes, you're on the Anupali program. So let's, Anupali.
Mr. PM.
Have to bear in mind that this is an ongoing process.
Ongoing process, yeah.
And we are asking our officers to exercise a level of patience whilst we continue to work on the.
But 130 is good news. I mean, it's great news. 130 positions to be filled within the public service at a time when many countries are cutting back on the number of public officers that they have in the public service. And I think this government must be commended for the efforts, and I want to thank the Minister and the CPO and all those concerned who've been working on this diligently to address a perennial challenge within the public service. I am very pleased to hear this, and let us continue to push to get this going. Now, we're running out of time. Minister, any final thoughts for the public?
Oh, yes. Based on what I have heard this evening, PM, our efforts at modernizing the public service should inspire hope in all of us as public officers.
Yeah.
I should be able to meet officers tomorrow who still have a song in their heart. You know that there's a song, I have a joy, joy, joy. They should come to work with that man. Yeah. Because we are really making an effort to improve the services and to improve what is happening in the public service, especially for officers. But seriously though, the public service is in dire need of these changes. Reform is a must, but it does not only rest in structural changes and processes, but it requires a paradigm shift in attitudes. And what we need now is a committed workforce, people who are eager and willing to work towards improving the public service. The onus, therefore, is on every public officer, I think, to make it almost emotional investment to ensure that what we are planning to do can really take root and blossom. So I am appealing to all public officers in all 16 ministries and all 5 departments within the public service to strive towards greater efficiency and effectiveness in the service. Let us stay committed to the task. Let us exude enthusiasm in all we do, especially in the delivery of our services to the public. And I promise you, as Minister for the Public Service, that I will do everything in my power, I probably should say we, because PS, you're there listening. We will do everything that we can to ensure that we achieve the goal of modernizing our public service. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Minister.
you, PS. And
Thank
sir,
you.
thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. We, I believe, have to, as a people, have a greater commitment to our country. I think if we have a greater commitment to our country and a greater love for our country and more passion for what we do, I think much more can be achieved.
Yes.
So I really want to thank my guests for joining me this evening. I think this was a useful discussion on the public service that outlined ways we can improve the quality of service we offer to the citizens of this country. It is my intention to meet on a quarterly basis with Mr. Layton, the General Secretary of the Public Service Union, to maintain constant communication about the issues affecting the public officers. In this way, we can devise means collaboratively to not only address their various concerns, but also to address your concerns as citizens. I reaffirm this government's commitment to provide the highest quality service at all government offices and to give attention to the cries of our public officers who are seeking advancement and a greater sense of security in their jobs. As you heard from the discussion tonight, work has already begun on this, and I give you the assurance that we intend to follow through. Next week, I'd like to invite the Minister for Tourism, Honorable Dennis Charles, and other industry stakeholders to discuss plans for the sector as we deal with the fallout of COVID-19. This is a discussion we must have as we explore new approaches to tourism development, given the new realities. I look forward to you joining me next Sunday for this important discussion. Remember, you can send questions that you want answered to one-on-one@anupali.dm. And we welcome your recommendations on how we can make improvements within the government service. Thank you for joining us, and let us continue to work together. This is another week. Let us go out and serve our God and country. This is Dominica. Let us be positive. Let us think positively. Let us do positive things. And I believe the more we think positively, the more we do positive things, and the greater benefits to our country. We all, I hope, want to see Dominica improve and be prosperous and more just. And the question is, what are you going to do about it? What is your individual contribution? And we all have to recognize that we have a role to play. If you're a young boy or young girl, your duty is to be diligent, to study your books, to do well at school, to make yourself proud, to make your parents proud, to make all of us proud. If you're a public officer, your duty is to serve the people and to serve them in an impartial and fair manner. And let us work together. And I'm very grateful for all of the people who came on the program this evening, the ministers and others, and for all of you who sent in your calls and your questions. This process is an engagement of you, the public, addressing issues that you draw to my attention. And the questions which I ask are questions which people pose to me, and I am posing it to those who are responsible for implementing government's policies and programs. I am very happy to be here, and I look forward to next Sunday to discuss with you. As we speak about opening our borders will be open on July 15 for Dominicans who are out there, and the caller made reference to about people who want to leave. You'll also be facilitated to leave in. We're also discussing and hoping to participate as well in what they call the Caribbean bubble. There are certain protocols that have been set, and Dominica looks forward to participating in this bubble. There are also issues relating to regional transportation, and it's a discussion and debate that's going on in the region, and Dominica will continue to play its part in this regard. Let us be diligent. We've gone through a very difficult period coming from Maria and then with COVID-19. But in every adversity that we have been confronted with, we have overcome. And we have been, whether it's the financial crisis, whether it's the oil crisis, whether it is the December trough, whether it is Ophelia, whether it is Erica, whether it is Maria, COVID-19, these things are not stopping Dominicans. And it is not going to stop, these things are not going to stop Dominica from progressing and doing what we have to do, because God is on our side, and we're on God's side, And once we recognize that we have a role to play as individuals to build this nation, much can be happen. What else can I say? That's to say to us that let us be positive. I remain concerned about the rancor and the division which exists in our country. You know, I'm stemming mainly from political partisanship. You know, I keep saying to people, let us fight a hard campaign, a rough campaign if we have to. But once the dust have settled, there's a party has been declared victorious. Can we not go back to working together? And I think that is, in my view, a missing component of this. And maybe you never know. I may very well invite the leader of the opposition to my program, so we could have a dialogue and a discussion on national issues. He will tell me all what he doesn't like about the government, and he'll tell me all what he likes about the government, and would not be interested. You know, so you never know. I may extend an invitation to him to be in the Anupali program at some point. And I think the political leadership in the country need to close the gap, you know, and improve on communication. You know, we will not always agree on everything, but for Christ's sake, we cannot always disagree. You say so. Let us identify the things that we agree on, and let us negotiate the things that we don't agree on as a people. Because at the end of the day, you know, this is our country, and we have this government. The government will be in place for the next 5 years, and it is our duty and obligation as citizens to work with the government of the day. You know, and when the time comes, efforts will be made to try to remove the government from office. And who wins the battle? Let us work. You know, so because every time we go through trials and tribulations, we appear to understand this, but the moment we get back to normal, we seem to go back to our old ways, and how well we live together after Maria. You know, why can't we do that? And we're a God-fearing nation. You know, we proclaim the supremacy of the Lord, and if we proclaim the supremacy of the Lord, why should we behave like Cain and Abel? You know, why can't we all live together, understanding and accepting the differences which we have? And you know, so this is one of my preoccupations, and to see how we can close the gap. But I also believe too that there are too many of us who have constructed things to say and are remaining silent. We have to speak. You know, we can't. There's always a saying that you can negotiate words, but you can't negotiate principles. And I think if something is right, we should say it is right, and let us build on this, and let us use the talent that we have in this country. You know, social media, for example. I mean, everything is negative. You know, let us promote what's happening, the good that's happening in Dominica. I mean, see how we've been able together to overcome the challenge of COVID-19. It's a small country with limited human and financial resources, and see large countries how they are managing COVID-19 with far more resources than us, far more access to resources than us, both human and material. You know, so there are a lot of good things and positive things that we can speak to, so that our children can hear us from a constructive, positive way, and then we can pass on that positive attitude towards our children. If our children only hear us speaking negatively, then how do we expect them to be positive? And if we tell our children there is no hope, how do we expect them to work to ensure that they can reap the blessings which the Lord has in store for them? And sometimes the blessings might be very well before us, and we're not seeing it. And I'm not talking about the blessings that are going around with this circle and so on. You know, so the blessings from the Lord. You know, some people say that this might be a blessing that the Lord has sent to them in light of COVID-19. But seriously, you know, we have to address the issue of how do we resolve conflict and disagreements in this country. And I'm hoping that at some point, sometime, that this can be achieved. And the time that we all have left on earth. No one knows the hour, and no one knows his number. You know, let us do good so that when the Lord comes back to judge the living and the dead, we're able to answer in the affirmative that we have done something good on earth. You know, it's not only about praying and going to church. These are things that are important, but our acts. We have to do things. We have to do things constructive for the least of our brothers and sisters. So I want to thank all of you for listening and for being part of this program. I look forward to seeing you and hearing you next Sunday, God's willing. As I said, as long as I'm in the country, I will host the program. If I'm not in the country, I will have a minister who will sit in for me so that we can continue dialogue. Please send us your recommendations on things that you would like us to discuss. If you have questions that you want me answered or you want my guests answered, please send it in advance so you don't have to wait for the Sunday to ask a question. We will certainly take note of your question because most of the questions, if not all of the questions which I asked tonight, came from you, the public. Thank you very much. Sleep well. God bless you, and let us work hard. And let us work even harder this week coming. And let us recommit ourselves to the development of our country, Dominica. Because if the roads are paved, we'll all drive on smooth roads. If the roads are not paved, we'll all drive on the rocky roads. And what we do, that is what we shall reap as individuals and as a collective. Thank you. God bless.